and we're going to unveil The Children of Lear by Liam Delaney, a triptych by Liam, an oil triptych by Liam Delaney. And then I will, and as I'm doing it, I would like, well, I will just do it. There are no words, but I'm hoping that our guest speaker, who I believe is never short of a word, just as a brief introduction, he's a writer, he's a painter, he's an art critic, or he's a critic, he's a poet. In fact, I think that he's cornered every piece of the arts. Tom Matthews, whom I'm sure you know.
Thank you all very much for coming along. William Butler Yeats, who, among other things, founded this club as well as the Abbey Theatre, and then went on to be such a whiz of a poet, won you a Nobel and so on. Before he discovered this great strength, he went to the Dublin Metropolitan School of Art to be a painter. And after a year discovered that he was no good at that. That was really his brother's job, or in fact his father's before him. Why do I bring this up? The reason is that he was, of course, a consummate artist in his own field. But unlike his disciple Dylan Thomas, who spoke of his art and subtle craft, Yeats did not describe his own products as art. He called them things like craft, all things contemporary, this craft of verse. Or Irish poets learn your trade, or at last the intellect of man is forced to choose perfection of the life or of the work. Living as we do in an age where if we wish to hear a symphony concert, it is no longer necessary to go to the National Concert Hall, we can press a button. If we wish to read a book, it is no longer necessary to go to a library or bookshop. We can conjure up Kindle, and if we're too lazy to look at the screen, we can listen to an audiobook. In a time like this, it is unusual, I think, to come across an artist of the calibre of Liam here, who will expend literally years at a time to produce an artwork. The work behind us took, I think, three, with, as explained earlier, the brief interruption, which we'll get back to. The subject matter of the Children of Lear, I assume you're all familiar with this story, but if not, I will press it as swiftly as possible. King Lear, many, many moons ago, is happily married. He has 4 beautiful children, Con, Hugh, Fig, and Ficra, and Fionnuala. Unfortunately, his dear wife pops her clogs, and he makes the ludicrous error of bringing in her sister Aoife to look after the children. Now, Aoife claims to love these children, but in fact, she would have been just as well bringing in Sir James Savile to look after them, because what she does, of course, is insanely jealous of his love for them, and theirs for him. She, with the aid of evil spirits, being an enchantress, turns these unfortunate kiddies into swans, and their curse is that for 900 years they will have to live as swans. Just before she's turned into a swan, Fionnuala speaks up. She says, "Can we have some kind of mitigating sort of thing?" And her wicked aunt explains, "Yes, you'll be allowed to have human voices, and you'll be allowed to sing beautifully." Not much of a consolation, I would think, for 300 years on Lake Dervara, 300 years in the Sea of Moyle, and a further 300 years at, I think, Inishglora. After this appalling exile, they of course end up in Inishglora, where, attending a mass by a disciple of St. Patrick, they hear the communion bell and are transformed back into very, very old people, told all about Christianity and go to heaven, God bless them. Anyway, that's briefly the story, and it's not as good a story as the one about the travelling salesman, but it's the best I can give you right now. Anyway, what I was saying earlier about work, when we look at this, at the amount of work that's gone into this thing, like Deirdre, I too saw this picture develop from the earliest times, and then saw it come to an appalling halt. And what happened, I don't think that Deirdre went fully into the appalling details of what happened to poor Liam. But what happened was, as a result of evil spirits, in this case I think Jamison, he happened to trip on a pavement in Grafton Street, and it seemed dislocated his shoulder, so off he went to emergency to have his shoulder shoved back into place. But lo and behold, there wasn't any shoulder, it had been completely pulverised, and so that instead they put in a metal ball joint, with the resultant consequence that for not 900 years, but that for 9 months he couldn't do any work on the painting. I had the privilege of going over and having my lunch on Sunday, quite frequently during the genesis of the last panel, and I saw it coming from a sketch into the thing it is now, which I think is rather wonderful. I think it's probably the most successful of the panels, though I have to say I marvel at the detail he's put into things like the spindrift on the wave and the quills in the feathers of the swans, and of course ultimately those amazingly difficult stones painted underwater, something that would give me a nightmare to do, and I think gave Liam a couple of nightmares as well. I'd like to finish by quoting John Updike, the novelist and poet, who himself had ambitions to be an artist, though in fact nobler ambitions than that. He had an ambition to be a cartoonist, but at any rate he ended up in the New Yorker, writing his successful novels and becoming a very fine art critic. And one of the things he said, and I think it's applicable here to Liam, he said he admired painters above all other arts and all other disciplines, because they took so little out of the world and they put so much into it. Ladies and gentlemen, I think you would agree that Liam has given something very beautiful to the world here, and I would like you now to put your hands together for the artist and for the beautiful image he's given us tonight. Before I finish, just before you do that, I should draw to your attention the fact that it is unlikely that anyone's going to buy the original tonight. But here's the thing. Sometimes when artists get together, of course not everybody in the arts club is an artist, but when particularly painters get together, some people are under the impression that they talk about things like chiaroscuro, or light and shadow, or as it might be, perspective, or indeed how difficult anatomy is, or colour charts and so on. No, au contraire, what they talk about is money and how little money they have. So with this in mind, you'll be glad to hear that available is a very fine coloured print of the image behind us, and I will now quickly give you a demonstration thereof. In fact, I'm asking my beautiful assistant here to hold it up, and this is available framed for the ludicrously small amount of money, 250 framed. So, listen, with that in mind, I return to my earlier request. Will you put your hands together, not for me and all the nonsense I've just said, but for the artist and for the image he's made us. Thank you very much for your kind attention.
I was once asked by my fellow people living in my apartment block, how can you paint a picture that size in your little small flat? I said it was very easy. I sat in front of the painting with a big hairy brush. Thank you.
Thank you, Liam. Thank you, Tom. Thank you all. And I think that was just, it's important to remember that there are prints for sale. If any of you feel like buying this divine piece of work, or know somebody, that would be interested in it, please don't hold back on that. It is for sale. Thank you very much.